Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. Welcome to your Bitcoin show. Bitcoin's taking a little tumble, guys, but don't worry. Let's get this chart started right here and take a look at this. What you're looking at is a chart of gold. And this gray shaded area over here, right in through here, the gray area, is the financial crisis of 2008. And what you notice is gold climbed up rather steeply. It went up from around $823 all the way up to $1,166 on March 2008 when the crisis really started to sink home. And what did we see gold do? It fell from $1,166 all the way down to $868.13 in October. So for 7 months, gold fell from $1,100 down to $860-something bucks. That's what the crisis did. That was a deflationary part of the crisis. You got a very unusual situation this time. It's different. This time, the Fed is trying to front-run the crisis. The crisis is already actually beginning, and the Fed is actually front-running it. Now, if we go up here to September of 2018, which is just a few months ago, we can see the price of gold has went from $1,205 all the way up to $1,531. Right now it's sitting at $1,477. Okay, so this is the effect. This raise in price from $1,205 all the way up to $1,477 is the Federal Reserve front-running this crisis. I personally believe that when we move into the first part, probably in the first quarter, maybe the second quarter of 2020, the bottom's going to drop out of this crisis just like it did back in 2008, except it's going to be worse this time. What they're trying to do is they're trying to hold back a freight train. This crisis is coming, by front-running it. Isn't going to work. It's going to hit. When it hits, the Fed is going to come in with stimulus, amazing stimulus. So we could initially see a drop in the price of gold and silver in the initial phases of this crisis coming up, even though the Fed's front-running it. And it could affect the price of Bitcoin in a negative way as well. So we're going to take a look at an article here. And this article is called What the Next Stock Market Crash Means for Bitcoin. And I'm just going to skip down a little bit here. It says, if the S&P 500 repeats the previous fractal and the next financial crisis kicks in before October 2020, we could see Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies suffer terribly. While blockchain technology may still be around when it's all over, the same cannot be said about Bitcoin. It's still possible that the next crisis creates a situation of widespread distrust and animosity toward governments and central banks, in which case Bitcoin could be a huge beneficiary. Okay, this is what I believe is going to happen is there is going to be a widespread distrust and animosity toward governments. We can already see the seeds of this being fermenting within the world right now. And this is one of the reasons why Bitcoin's even here. People don't trust central banks and their currency. Central banks, it says animosity toward governments and central banks. And Bitcoin could be a huge beneficiary. As this next crisis sets in, I can see this next crisis being a crisis in government itself. Unlike 2008, this crisis is going to have a different form. It's going to take a different shape. But it actually also has more energy than we've seen in the crisis of 2008. It says, if gold is a safe haven asset, it declines in the event of a market crash, as it has before, Bitcoin is a highly speculative asset, and it can be expected to easily do the same. And I happen to agree with that. If we see the gold and silver price dropping because a deflation starts to set in, it's only going to be a temporary thing. The government's going to race in to prop up the system with more liquidity, just like they're doing in the repo market right now. But, people underestimate. They say things like, the Fed is out of ammunition. That'll never be true. They can print as much money as they want. And believe me, if the right situation comes into play to force them to print, they will. They're not going to let their cushy jobs go down the drain, let deflation destroy everything, and them take the blame for it. Ain't going to happen, guys. The central banks are here to stay. The central bank's not going anywhere. You hear this stuff on some people out there saying, okay, Trump is going to take out the central bank and all this kind of stuff. The central bank's here to stay, and as they print more, they gain more power. They grow. They're here to stay. And in fact, I know the central bank is an awful, terrible, and it's a terrible thing. Horrible thing. But when this crisis hits, it's going to be the only thing standing between us and a total breakdown of society. And because they're the only ones that can create the money needed to get the system up and running again. They're in charge of that responsibility. So they'll be needed more than ever when the crisis hits. This is going to give them power. This is going to grow them. It's not going to shrink them. Okay, the central bank is here to stay. They're not going to, I know that a lot of people out there, get rid of the Fed, get rid of the Fed. But, the central bank is going to gain power from this. They're going to print and print and print, and as they print, the more money that they create, the more power they get. It enhances them. It grows them. And, you hear all these people out there saying the Fed's going to be gone, the Fed's going to be gone. It's still here. It's here. It's here to stay. You don't see it going. In fact, it's getting more. It's growing. Anyway, enough talked about that. Look at this article here. Bitcoin price is doomed if Bitcoin plunges below $5,800. I read this whole article. I couldn't find anywhere saying the reason why that Bitcoin is doomed if it goes down below $5,800. I don't think Bitcoin is doomed if it goes below $5,800. In fact, the cheaper Bitcoin goes on this end, the more Bitcoin's going to disappear into people's wallets. Here, there, and everywhere. And the higher potential it has to go on the other end. The deeper this goes, the deeper we go, the lower we go, the higher we're going to go on the other end. Now, I know that doesn't seem to make much sense to you guys. But this is actually good for Bitcoin. In the long term, what's happening right now with the price going down lower and lower and lower is actually good for Bitcoin. The lower it goes, the more power it's going to gain in the system. And the reason why is because when this crisis starts, if Bitcoin's way up high, and the crisis begins and money starts to disappear, liquidity is drawn out of the system, Bitcoin could crash unbelievably hard. But if Bitcoin is already down low, then it won't crash as hard. It won't go as low as it could have. And that shock to the Bitcoin system, and the Bitcoin does have a system out there. The system is being created as we speak. It's growing. Lightning Network's growing. The system that Bitcoin runs on is growing. The amount of people that know about it is growing. It is growing, right? And that ecosystem that's being created is not going to be hurt near as bad if the price is low when we go into the crisis, so we don't have a huge drop-off. If we get a huge drop-off, it's going to put a tremendous amount of negative energy into the space. So we won't have that huge drop-off. If we're already down low, this is the way markets work, guys. If price is too high on something, look out for it to fall. And if price has already been knocked down low and lower, then it's ready to rise. This is the way markets work. Bitcoin was in a bubble at 20,000. The wind all fell out of it. Now we're down there. We're down only a fraction of the price we were. You know? That's not a bad thing for Bitcoin and for the cryptocurrencies. And it makes it so that you guys can get a little bit of more. It gives you a little chance to get in there before Bitcoin does go up into astronomically high prices. Makes it so the common man out there can get a little bit. You know, what's bad about that? Listen, thank you guys for listening. Give me a thumbs up. Catch you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.